You are now listening to The Art of Internal Dialogue, brought to you by Reimagine Audio. Introduction: The Art of Internal Dialogue. Every human being lives with two worlds: the outer world that everyone can see, and the inner world that only they can hear. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change the outer world, never realizing that the true architect of their experience is the quiet, constant voice within. This voice does not shout. It does not wait. It does not rest. It narrates without permission and influences without question. And for most people, it has been doing so their entire lives without ever being examined. The truth is simple but revolutionary. Your internal dialogue is the most powerful creative force in your reality. It shapes how you interpret your circumstances. It determines how you respond to challenges. It colors how you see yourself. It influences what you believe is possible. And it writes the script you end up living. You cannot escape this inner voice because it is part of the human design. But you can transform it. You can guide it. You can elevate it. You can train it. And ultimately, you can use it as the very tool that reshapes your identity, your decisions, and your destiny. This book is not about silencing that voice. It's about mastering it. You will learn how to tune into it, clearly, deliberately, without fear. You will discover how much of your daily thinking has been inherited rather than chosen. You will begin to recognize the words, phrases, and silent assumptions that have been shaping your outcomes. And most importantly, you will learn how to rewrite the dialogue that has been writing you. The art of internal dialogue exists for one purpose: to awaken you to the author within. Every chapter in this book is designed to help you take command of the voice that never sleeps. You will learn how to control the narrative instead of being controlled by it. You will learn how to verbalize your vision instead of repeating your limitations. You will learn how to interrupt the mental patterns that do not serve you and condition the ones that align with your higher self. Your words, whether spoken aloud or whispered internally, are not passive. They are creative. They are formative. They are constructive. And they are prophetic. The Bible says, "My tongue is the pen of a ready writer," Psalm 45:1. Florence Scovel Shinn said, "Your word is your wand." Neville Goddard taught that your inner speech is the birthplace of your outer world. These teachings all point to the same truth. You become what you continuously say, especially to yourself. As you walk through this book, you will discover that your internal dialogue has never been a background noise. It has always been the foreground creator. And when you take hold of it, consciously, intentionally, repeatedly, your inner voice becomes your greatest ally. It becomes guidance. It becomes clarity. It becomes alignment. It becomes power. It becomes creation. This is not just another self-help book. This is a manual for mental authorship, a guide for inner mastery, a blueprint for rewriting your life from the inside out. So as you turn these pages, remember this: your mind is listening. Your subconscious is receiving. Your inner narrator is ready to be redirected. And your life is prepared to transform. Welcome to the Art of Internal Dialogue, where you stop being a character in your story and become the writer of it. Chapter 1: The Voice That Never Sleeps. There is a voice inside every human being that never takes a break. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for an introduction. It doesn't need an invitation to speak. It is always narrating, always commenting, always analyzing, always describing, always defining and always shaping the way you interpret your world. Whether you are aware of it or not, that voice is constantly crafting a story, your story. Most people go through life never realizing that the loudest influence in their experience is not the world outside, but the voice inside. This internal narrator is so familiar, so consistent, and so subtle that many never examine it. But everything you experience is filtered through that internal dialogue. Every emotion is triggered by it. Every perception is colored by it. Every belief is reinforced by it. And every outcome in your life is, in some way, tied to the script this inner voice is writing. This voice narrates even when your outer world is silent. It speaks when you wake up, long before anyone else has the chance to talk to you. It speaks when you walk into a room. It speaks when you face a challenge. It speaks when you dream. It speaks when you worry. It speaks when you doubt. It speaks when you celebrate. It even speaks when you are trying to be quiet. And the truth is, the quality of this voice determines the quality of your life. The internal voice is the artist behind your reactions. It is the composer behind your emotions. It is the playwright behind your expectations. It is the editor behind your self-image. And because it never stops talking, it never stops shaping the way you see yourself and the world around you. Some people live with an internal narrator that constantly criticizes, constantly warns, constantly fears, constantly doubts, or constantly rehearses the worst possible outcome. And because that voice never sleeps, they live in a state of internal fatigue, not because of the world outside, but because of the unexamined world inside. Others live with a voice that encourages, uplifts, envisions, and imagines great things. That voice is not naive, it is creative. It is not unrealistic, it is purposeful. It is not wishful thinking, it is intentional thinking. And because this voice never sleeps either, their inner world stays aligned with their desired outcome. The key to mastering the art of internal dialogue begins with acknowledging this truth. You are not the voice. You are the one who hears the voice. And because you hear it, you can guide it. The internal voice is like a narrator of a movie that plays behind your eyes. Every scene in your life has a commentary attached to it, and that commentary shapes how you feel about the moment. If your inner voice says, "This is too hard," then the scene becomes difficult. If it says, "This is possible," the scene becomes workable. If it says, "I always fail," the scene becomes discouraging. If it says, "I always rise," the scene becomes empowering. The same moment, the same environment, the same circumstance, different narration, different outcome. This voice is also the bridge between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. What you repeatedly say inside eventually becomes what you unconsciously believe. And what you unconsciously believe becomes what you consistently experience. It is a cycle, one that you can either allow or take command of. Many people think their internal voice is simply reacting to life, but in truth, the voice is creating life. It comments before you feel. It interprets before you judge. It gives meaning before you decide. It frames your reality before you take a single step toward it. The narrator inside you is not a reporter. It is a creator. You were born with this voice. It is part of the human design. But the content of its dialogue was shaped by your experiences, your environment, your upbringing, your fears, your memories, your patterns, and your assumptions. Over time, this voice becomes familiar, not because it is accurate, but because it is repeated. Familiarity does not equal truth. Familiarity equals consistency, and consistency creates belief. The power of internal dialogue lies in this revelation. If this voice can be conditioned accidentally, it can be conditioned intentionally. Most of the stories people live by were never consciously chosen. They were absorbed. They were inherited. They were repeated until they became automatic. But the moment you recognize the voice, the moment you tune into its pattern, the moment you acknowledge that it is speaking without your permission, that is the moment you begin to reclaim your creative authority. This chapter sets the foundation for your transformation. You cannot change what you do not recognize. You cannot redirect what you do not acknowledge. And you cannot speak with authority over something you are unaware of. Awakening to the presence of this inner narrator is the first step. Once you see it, you can question it. Once you question it, you can challenge it. Once you challenge it, you can rewrite it. And once you rewrite it, you can command it. The voice never sleeps, but from this point forward, it will no longer speak freely. It will speak deliberately. It will speak intentionally. It will speak creatively. It will speak in alignment with your destiny. And it will speak under your leadership. Chapter 2. The inner conversation that builds your world. Your internal dialogue does more than comment on your life. It builds it. Every silent agreement, every repeated phrase, every assumption you entertain becomes a structural element in the world you experience. Life does not form first and then get interpreted. Interpretation comes first, and life organizes itself around it. Most people believe they are reacting to circumstances. In truth, they are reacting to the meaning their inner dialogue assigned to those circumstances long before emotion or action appeared. The world you walk through is not neutral. It is personalized by the conversation you carry within yourself. Your subconscious mind is the builder of your reality, and your internal dialogue is its instruction manual. It does not question your words, does not argue with your logic. It does not fact-check your assumptions. It simply accepts what you repeat with emotional conviction and begins arranging perception, behavior, timing, and experience to match it. This is why internal dialogue is more powerful than effort. Effort tries to force change against an internal narrative. Inner dialogue changes the narrative, and effort becomes unnecessary. Your world does not shift when you work harder. Your world shifts when your inner conversation changes. The conversation that precedes every experience. Nothing appears in your life without first being spoken inwardly. This does not always happen consciously. In fact, most of the conversations shaping your world occur beneath awareness, as automatic assumptions, rather than deliberate statements. Before confidence shows up, there is an internal permission. Before hesitation repeats, there is an internal warning. Before opportunity appears, there's an internal allowance. Before limitation hardens, there is an internal agreement. You do not experience events directly. You experience them through the filter of inner speech. The subconscious mind does not respond to events. It responds to the story you tell yourself about those events. Two people can encounter the same delay. One internally says, "This is blocking me." The other says, "This is aligning me." Same delay. Different dialogue. Different future. Your inner conversation is not passive narration. It is active interpretation, and interpretation determines outcome. The blueprint law of reality. Your internal dialogue functions like a blueprint A blueprint does not resemble the finished building. It is quiet, flat, unseen. But once it exists, construction follows it faithfully. Builders do not question the blueprint. They build according to it. Your subconscious mind builds according to your inner speech. If your internal dialogue repeatedly says, "I struggle," life organizes struggle. If it says, "Things come together for me," life organizes cohesion. If it says, "I'm unsupported," life reflects isolation. If it says, "I'm guided," life reflects assistance. The subconscious does not evaluate truth. It executes instruction. Whatever feels normal internally becomes what is reproduced externally. Normal is not what is true. Normal is what is repeated. Why casual inner speech is never casual. Most people speak internally without discipline because inner speech feels private and harmless. But the subconscious treats private speech as authoritative instruction. A sentence repeated inwardly carries more creative weight than a sentence spoken aloud once. Why? Because repetition signals importance. Emotion signals belief. And belief is what the subconscious obeys. When you say internally, "This always happens to me," you are not complaining. You are commanding consistency. When you say, "I'm tired of this," you are not venting. You are rehearsing the state you claim to want to leave. The subconscious does not understand sarcasm, frustration, or exaggeration. It understands direction. Whatever you speak inwardly with feeling becomes direction. Inner dialogue creates conditions, not just emotions. Internal dialogue does not only affect how you feel, it affects what you experience. Your inner conversation determines what feels possible, what feels intimidating, what you notice, what you ignore, how people seem to respond to you, how quickly you recover from setbacks, how long you persist, what outcomes feel natural for you. Your life expands or contracts to the size of your internal permission. If your inner dialogue says, "That's not for people like me," your world shrinks accordingly. If it says, "I belong in this level of life," your world expands to match the assumption. Life is not resisting you. Life is complying with your inner agreement. The language. Your subconscious responds to assumptive language, not hopeful language. Hope sounds like uncertainty. Assumption sounds like identity. Hope says, "Maybe someday." Assumption says, "This is how things work for me." Inner dialogue that builds your world sounds like, "Things resolve for me. I adapt easily. I'm supported in unseen ways. I always land on my feet. My life responds when I decide." When these sentences become habitual, your environment reorganizes itself without strain, not through magic, through alignment. People respond differently because you interpret them differently. Opportunities appear because you recognize them sooner. Timing improves because you stop resisting internally. Your outer world follows your inner posture. Why reality seems to confirm your thinking. Reality appears to prove your beliefs because your inner dialogue determines expectation, focus, interpretation, emotional reaction, behavioral response. The subconscious is not trying to make you right. It is trying to stay consistent. If your internal dialogue says, "People disappoint me," you will interpret neutral behavior as rejection. If it says, "People respond well to me," you will notice cooperation instead. Life is not arguing with you. It is agreeing with you. Speaking from the condition versus speaking from the end. Most people narrate life from the condition they are currently experiencing. This is hard. It's taking too long. Nothing is changing. This always happens. These statements feel honest, but they reinforce the condition rather than move beyond it. They keep the subconscious loyal to the present state. Mastery begins when you shift from describing what is to declaring what is becoming. Speaking from the end sounds like, this is resolving now. Everything is rearranging. I'm aligned with the outcome. I'm becoming someone for whom this works easily. This is not denial. This is authorship. You are no longer reporting reality. You are instructing it. The moment the conversation shifts, the condition follows. The instant your inner dialogue changes, several things happen automatically. Your emotional tone shifts. Your posture shifts. Your breathing changes your expectations. Recalibrate your decisions. Adjust. Behavior follows identity. Identity follows internal dialogue. You do not force new results. You become the version of yourself for whom new results are natural. The core truth of this chapter, reality is not reacting to what you do. Reality is reacting to what you consistently say within yourself. Your inner conversation is the unseen architect. Your world is the visible structure. Change the conversation, and the structure must change. This chapter prepares you for the next phase of mastery, the resistance that rises when you attempt to change that conversation, the argument of the old self. Because the moment you speak differently within, something inside you will respond. And that response is not failure, it is transformation beginning. Chapter 3. The Argument of the Old Self. Inside every human being lives an older version of themselves, a composite identity formed from childhood patterns, past disappointments, inherited beliefs, fears, and conclusions you made about yourself long before you knew you were making them. This old self is not evil, but it is committed to familiarity. It was built for survival, not expansion. It is designed to keep you safe inside what is known, predictable, and historically reinforced. And the way this old identity maintains its influence is through internal arguments. The moment you imagine a new possibility, a better life, a higher expression of yourself, the old self begins speaking. It debates you. It questions you. It warns you. It pulls old memories out of storage. It paints worst-case scenarios. It tries to keep you loyal to the version of you that it understands. The version constructed from yesterday. The old self whispers with authority. Be realistic. You've never done that before. What if you fail? Don't get your hopes up. You know how things usually go for you. These statements are not logical truths. They are the emotional reflexes of an outdated identity. This inner voice speaks from the past, not the future. It relies on repetition, not revelation. It is not trying to hurt you. It is trying to protect its role. After all, the old self has been in charge for years. It has developed patterns of thinking, reacting, and interpreting. And those patterns feel familiar, even when they are limiting. But here is the deeper truth. The argument you hear inside is a sign that you are evolving. If you never attempted to expand, the old self would never speak. It only rises when it is being threatened by your growth. The friction inside you is not failure. It is evidence of transformation. Whenever you attempt to step into a new identity, the old identity reacts. It tries to convince you that you are still the person you once were. The mistake most people make is believing the old self simply because it sounds familiar. But familiarity is not truth. The voice that has spoken the longest isn't necessarily the voice that knows the most. In fact, the old self is limited by its history. It cannot imagine beyond what it has experienced. This is why you cannot allow it to be the narrator of your future. The more important question is this: how do you dissolve the argument of the old self? You do not silence it by fighting with it. That gives it more energy. You do not negotiate with it. Negotiation implies it has authority. You do not analyze it endlessly. That keeps you stuck in the same story. The only way to weaken the old identity is by introducing a new internal voice that speaks from the end, not from the past. This new voice is the voice of the realized you, the version of yourself who already lives in the outcome you desire, the version whose confidence is based not on history, but on destiny. The new self has its own vocabulary. This is who I am becoming. I am capable. This comes naturally to me now. I'm aligned with the version of me that thrives. My life is responding to my new identity. Each time you speak from this new internal voice, you shift the center of power. The old self becomes weaker, not because you fight it, but because you stop feeding it. Identity is fueled by attention. The more you feed the old narrative, the stronger it becomes. The more you nourish the new narrative, the more dominant it grows. This internal transition is not a moment, but a process. You will feel the tug of war between who you've been and who you are becoming. You will hear internal objections, doubts, and arguments. But instead of interpreting them as personal flaws, you must interpret them correctly. They are echoes of a self you are outgrowing. A seed breaking open in the soil does not interpret the cracking as failure. It interprets it as expansion. Likewise, the friction you feel is simply the shell of your old identity breaking so the new one can emerge. The art of internal dialogue requires you to become conscious of which voice you are authorizing. Every internal voice competes for dominance, but only the one you agree with becomes your identity. And only the identity you accept becomes your experience. When you consistently choose the voice of the new self, the voice that speaks with conviction, certainty, expectancy, and alignment, something remarkable begins to happen. Your assumptions shift, your expectations elevate, your reactions change, your emotions become more stable. Your confidence grows, and slowly your outer world begins to rearrange itself to reflect the new internal narrative. This is not magic. It is law. The world mirrors the identity you embody, and identity is nothing more than a story, a persistent internal dialogue spoken until it becomes natural. The old self will argue. The new self will declare. You must decide which voice is the author of your future. The moment you consistently identify with the voice of the new self, the argument ends, not because the old voice disappears, but because it loses its authority. It becomes background noise, a faint echo of a reality you no longer inhabit. Master this chapter, and you master the pivot point of transformation, the internal agreement that determines who you become. Chapter 4. Speaking from the End. One of the greatest revelations a person can experience is understanding the creative power of speaking from the end. Every desire has an end point, a fulfilled state, a completed expression, a final outcome where the thing you want is already yours. Most people speak from their present circumstances, but the masters, the ones who transform their lives, speak from the end. They adopt the tone, the confidence, the vocabulary, and the assumptions of the person who already has what they desire. When you speak from the end, you bypass the limitations of the present. You step into the posture of completion and allow that posture to instruct your subconscious mind. Your internal dialogue becomes an echo of the fulfilled desire rather than a reaction to the visible world. This shift is subtle, but it is the dividing line between stagnation and transformation. The majority of people narrate life based on what they see. I don't have it yet. It's taking too long. This always happens to me. I'm trying, but nothing is changing. These statements feel honest, but they are imprisoning. They keep you loyal to the very state you wish to leave. When your inner speech reflects your current circumstance, you recreate the same circumstance again and again. You rehearse the unwanted until it becomes familiar, and the familiar becomes your experience. To change your world, you must change the internal script you give it to follow. Speaking from the end is not pretending. It is positioning. It is choosing to adopt the mindset, the emotional tone, and the assumptions of your fulfilled self. This is the language of creation, not denial. You are not ignoring your current circumstances. You are overriding them. Speaking from the end sounds like this. This is already mine. I walk in the reality of my desire. Life is aligning with my assumption. I think, speak, and feel from the version of myself who already has the outcome. When these statements become natural, your subconscious mind accepts them as instructions. And because the subconscious mind does not question, it only obeys. It begins rearranging your interpretations, your actions, and your outer world to reflect the new state you have claimed. The key is consistency. The old self will try to pull you back into speaking from lack or frustration. The world may tempt you to narrate what you see rather than what you choose. But mastery is measured not by moments of inspiration, but by sustained internal alignment. The more you speak from the end, the more natural it becomes. The more natural it becomes, the more your world begins to reflect it. Speaking from the end also requires emotional alignment. Words alone cannot create unless they are supported by feeling. When you speak internally as if your desire is already fulfilled, something begins to shift inside you. You stand taller. You breathe differently. You walk with a quiet assurance. You respond with calmness rather than urgency. You behave from confidence rather than insecurity. This is the transformation that precedes the manifestation. The fulfilled self does not beg. The fulfilled self does not fear. The fulfilled self does not wonder, when will it happen? The fulfilled self lives in the knowing that it has happened already, internally, and therefore must happen externally. This chapter invites you to step into that version of yourself deliberately and consistently. Every time you catch yourself narrating from the present lack, gently replace the sentence with a statement from the fulfilled end. This is not mental gymnastics. It is spiritual authorship. You are choosing the script from which your subconscious mind will build your reality. When you speak from the end, your internal dialogue becomes a prophecy. It becomes a declaration of identity. It becomes the foundation upon which life constructs your experience. People, opportunities, ideas, resources, and circumstances begin to shift because they must adjust to the identity you have assumed. The external world cannot resist the internal decree. This is why speaking from the end feels powerful. It aligns your inner world with your desired outcome. And when your inner world changes, your outer world follows faithfully. The question is no longer, how do I get what I want? The real question becomes, how does the version of me who already has it speak? Because the answer to that question is the bridge between where you are and where you desire to be. When you master speaking from the end, you no longer chase results. Results come toward you. You no longer seek permission. You give yourself permission. You no longer wonder if things will change. You assume the change has already taken place. This chapter is your invitation to begin living internally from your chosen outcome. From this point on, you are not reacting to life. You are directing it. You are not describing your circumstances. You are defining them. You are not pleading with the world. You are speaking to it. Speak from the end, and the end will speak back. Chapter 5. The emotional frequency of inner speech. Every word you speak within yourself carries a frequency. Some frequencies lift you, expand you, empower you, and align you with the version of yourself you desire to become. Other frequencies shrink you, weaken you, confuse you, and keep you tethered to a past identity. But the truth is unmistakable. Your inner dialogue has an emotional tone, and that tone is creative. Emotion is the fuel that gives your internal dialogue power. Without emotion, inner speech is a whisper. With emotion, it becomes a command. The subconscious mind does not respond to empty affirmations, but to felt affirmations. It accepts the emotional quality of your inner words as reality, and works tirelessly to match that emotional state externally. This is why two people can repeat the same affirmation, yet only one sees results. It is not the words alone. It is the emotional frequency behind the words. When your inner speech carries the vibration of fear, insecurity, or doubt, your subconscious accepts those frequencies and brings forth experiences that reinforce them. Likewise, when your inner speech carries the vibration of confidence, peace, gratitude, and certainty, your subconscious organizes your world to align with those inner states. Emotion is the spiritual electricity of creation. It is the difference between thinking about something and embodying it. Most people speak internally from habit rather than intention. Their emotional states are reactions to external conditions rather than choices rooted in inner authority. But mastery begins when you realize that emotions are not meant to be chased or suppressed. They are meant to be generated. Your emotional frequency is not an accident. It is a product of your inner conversation. For example, notice how your body responds when your internal dialogue says, "I'm overwhelmed. I can't do this. This is too much." Life contracts. Breathing becomes shallow. Your energy drops. Now, notice what happens when your internal dialogue says, "I've got this. I'm supported. Everything is working in my favor." The body relaxes. The heart steadies. The mind clears. You expand. The emotional frequency shifts instantly because your inner speech has shifted. This chapter teaches you that you are not a victim of your emotional state. You are the author of it. You generate emotion by generating conversation. You produce the feeling by producing the thought. And whatever feeling you produce becomes the creative mold through which your life takes shape. Emotion is not just a reaction. It is a signal. It is the signature that tells the subconscious mind what state to reproduce. When you speak internally with feelings of lack, You initiate the emotional frequency of lack. Your subconscious then seeks to maintain that state by shaping experiences that keep you lacking. But the opposite is equally true. When you speak internally with feelings of abundance, fullness, and completion, you activate an emotional frequency that draws corresponding experiences toward you. This is why Neville Goddard emphasized the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not the words of the wish fulfilled, the feeling. Your internal dialogue must be paired with the emotion of the state you desire to inhabit. You cannot speak abundance with the emotional tone of fear and expect abundance to appear. The subconscious responds to the emotional climate, not the vocabulary. The emotional frequency of inner speech is also what determines your identity. Every identity has a feeling. The feeling of unworthiness, the feeling of confidence, the feeling of success, the feeling of frustration, the feeling of power, the feeling of defeat. Your repeated emotional tones create the atmosphere of your self-concept. You do not rise above your emotional frequency. You rise with it. The question you must ask is not, "What do I want?" but, "What is the emotional frequency of the person who already has what I want? Does that version of you feel anxious or assured, desperate or calm, doubtful or confident, fearful or favored?" When you identify the emotional frequency of your desired self, your inner speech must begin to speak from that feeling. The emotion becomes the foundation for your inner dialogue, and your inner dialogue becomes the foundation for your transformation. The emotional frequency also determines how you perceive the world. When you are operating from a low emotional tone, even neutral events appear threatening or discouraging. When you operate from a high emotional tone, obstacles appear manageable and opportunities appear more frequently. Your state determines your interpretation, and your interpretation determines your experience. This chapter gives you the power to regulate your emotional climate deliberately. Instead of letting the world dictate your emotions, you dictate your emotions by dictating your inner speech. You generate the feeling you desire before the world gives you a reason to feel it. When your internal dialogue consistently carries the emotional frequency of your fulfilled desire, you enter into a state of expectancy. Not hope, expectancy. Hope says maybe, expectancy says already. And the emotional frequency of already is magnetic. It draws the equivalent into your world because your subconscious assumes it to be true. Emotion is not the result of manifestation. Emotion is the cause of manifestation. Your feeling is the evidence that the inner conversation has taken root. Master this, and you master the engine of creation. You will no longer be tossed by emotional waves because you will realize that you are the one stirring the waters. Your emotions are not random storms. They are responses to the internal narrator you have authorized. When you choose a new emotional frequency, your life elevates to meet it. When you speak from that frequency consistently, your life transforms. This is the art of emotional authorship, the ability to generate the feeling of your desired state and maintain it through deliberate internal dialogue. This is not pretending, it is alignment. You are speaking from the atmosphere of your future rather than the memory of your past. Align your inner speech with the emotional frequency of your fulfilled desire, and your outer world will harmonize with it. This is the power behind every transformation. This is the secret behind every manifestation. This is the foundation of internal mastery. Chapter 6. The conversation behind your beliefs. Everything you believe about yourself, your life, your worth, your future, and your possibilities has been shaped by one thing: your internal dialogue. Beliefs are not formed by events. They are formed by the conversations you had about those events. Two people can go through the same moment, but the belief each person walks away with depends entirely on the dialogue they held within themselves afterward. Beliefs are internal conclusions repeated until they become automatic. They are not facts. They are patterns of thought supported by emotion and repetition. Beliefs are simply thoughts you've agreed with long enough that they've become your default interpretation of life. And at the root of every belief is a sentence. A quiet, persistent sentence. A sentence you have spoken within yourself so many times that it now feels like truth. I always struggle. No one supports me. Things never work out for me. I'm not good enough. None of these are facts. They are memorized internal dialogues. They are conversations that, repeated over time, hardened into beliefs. And once a belief is formed, your subconscious begins shaping your world to reflect it. The world you experience is not shaped by what you want. It is shaped by what you believe. And what you believe is shaped by what you say internally. This chapter teaches a profound truth. Beliefs don't change because life changes. Life changes because beliefs change. To transform your beliefs, you must transform the internal conversation that created them. You must challenge and replace the sentences that built your limitations. You cannot change a belief by wrestling with it. You change it by supplying new dialogue that contradicts the old narrative and supports a new identity. Beliefs are like roots. They sit beneath the surface, unseen, but they determine the fruit your life produces. If you change the roots, the fruit must change. If you change the internal dialogue, the belief must shift. And when the belief shifts, your world follows. Consider how beliefs are formed. A child hears, "You're difficult," and the child begins to repeat internally, "Maybe I am difficult." The repetition creates a belief. The belief shapes behavior. The behavior invites reinforcement. The reinforcement strengthens the belief. The cycle continues. But here is the liberation. Beliefs can be reauthored. You can uproot a limiting belief by replacing the internal conversation that sustains it. You do not need to understand where the belief came from. You only need to supply a new, dominant narrative. For example, if your old belief is, "I always struggle," your new internal dialogue must become, "Things come together for me now. I am supported in ways I never imagined. Life is on my side." At first, the new dialogue may feel unnatural. That is expected. You are not speaking from memory. You are speaking from the end, the outcome, the desired identity. The new belief has not yet taken root, so the old belief tries to defend itself. You may feel resistance, doubt, or discomfort. This is not failure. It is the old belief losing its grip. Beliefs shift through repetition with feeling. If you repeat a new internal conversation consistently, with emotional resonance, your subconscious accepts it as the new truth. And once the subconscious accepts it, you no longer force the belief. The belief begins to feel natural. Think of it this way. A belief is simply a thought practiced until it feels normal. A new belief is simply a new thought practiced until it feels normal. Your job is not to destroy old beliefs, but to dethrone them by replacing the internal dialogue that supports them. This chapter breaks down the mechanics. 1. Awareness. Become aware of the sentences you've been repeating unconsciously. Before a belief can be transformed, it must be recognized. 2. Interruption. Catch the old internal dialogue in real time. The moment the old sentence appears, "You can't. This won't work. You don't deserve better." Interrupt it. 3. Replacement. Supply a new sentence that supports the identity you are stepping into. Speak. From the end, not the past. 4. Emotion. Charge the new dialogue with feeling. Emotion is what cements the belief into the subconscious. 5. Repetition. Repeat the new internal conversation until it becomes the dominant one. Every belief in your life was built this way, and every new belief will be built the same way. Beliefs are not obstacles. They are permissions. They determine how far you allow yourself to go. They determine what you feel worthy of receiving. They determine the level of life you identify with. A belief is simply a boundary you accepted, and boundaries can be moved. When you shift the conversation behind your beliefs, everything open to you expands. You walk differently. You expect differently. You interpret differently. You respond differently. Your emotional climate changes. Your opportunities change. Your relationships change. Your sense of self changes. This is because belief is not intellectual. It is experiential. You experience your beliefs through your internal dialogue. Change the dialogue, and the experience must follow. You are not trapped by your beliefs. You are shaped by them. And shaping them is within your authority. The moment you choose a new belief and align your internal dialogue with it, your subconscious begins reordering your life to match the new assumption. The world around you shifts because the world within you has taken on a new pattern. Master the conversation behind your beliefs, and you master the foundation of your entire life. Chapter 7. The Silent Saboteur. Unconscious Self-Talk. Most people are aware of their loud thoughts, the ones they can hear clearly and challenge consciously. But the most powerful, most influential, and most life-shaping thoughts are the ones that whisper beneath awareness. These hidden, automatic, unconscious lines of inner speech are what truly determine how you feel, how you behave, and what you allow yourself to experience. This silent self-talk is the saboteur within. It does not shout, it nudges. It does not argue, it suggests. It does not attack. It leads you gently back into old patterns. Unconscious inner speech is the collection of mental habits you formed long before you developed the ability to question them. It is the residue of childhood conditioning, past disappointments, emotional wounds, and inherited narratives. It is old programming running in the background of your awareness, influencing everything, without ever asking for permission. For example, you may consciously say, "I want better relationships." But your unconscious dialogue might whisper, "People always leave." You may consciously say, "I'm going to be successful." But your unconscious dialogue might murmur, "You're not built for that." You may consciously affirm, "I deserve more." But the silent saboteur might quietly insist, "Just settle. That's all you get." These quiet messages shape your emotional responses, your decisions, your expectations, and even your level of ambition. They determine how quickly you bounce back from setbacks, how boldly you pursue opportunities, and how confidently you carry yourself in the world. The unconscious script is the real author of your life until you learn to rewrite it. This chapter reveals a liberating truth. Your unconscious self-talk is not who you are. It is who you learned to be. The person you learned to be is not the person you are destined to remain. But to change the unconscious, you must first bring it into awareness. The silent saboteur shows up most prominently in 3 areas. 1. Emotional triggers. Whenever something happens that feels larger than the moment, the unconscious script is speaking. Overreactions, sudden insecurity, unexplained fear. These are not responses to the present. They are responses to old conversations. 2. Automatic assumptions. Your immediate interpretation of a situation reveals the internal dialogue running behind the scenes. If someone doesn't call you back, do you assume rejection? If a plan changes, do you assume the worst? These assumptions are clues. 3. Persistent patterns. Life repeats what the unconscious believes. If you keep experiencing the same struggle, the same emotional cycle, or the same type of relationship dynamic, the silent saboteur is reinforcing an old internal instruction. But here's the power. Once the unconscious dialogue becomes conscious, you can rewrite it. Awareness is liberation. Replacement is transformation. To rewrite the unconscious script, you must engage in 5 steps. Step 1. Identify the pattern. Your life is always revealing your internal dialogue. Pay attention to the moments where you shrink, hesitate, settle, or sabotage. Every pattern has a sentence behind it. Find the sentence. Step 2. Interrupt the automatic response. The moment you catch the unconscious voice, you can't. You don't deserve. This won't work. Pause. Even a 1-second interruption breaks the cycle and weakens the pattern. Step 3. Introduce a new inner voice. Replace the old whisper with a deliberate internal statement. I am worthy of this. This is aligning for me now. I walk in favor. I choose the version of me who thrives. This new line of dialogue does not need to feel true immediately. It becomes true through repetition. Step 4. Feel the new statement. Emotion is the glue that binds the new narrative into your subconscious. When you feel the new inner speech, even for a few seconds, you begin rewiring the emotional associations connected to the old script. Step 5. Practice until the new voice becomes automatic. Just as the old unconscious dialogue was learned through repetition, the new internal script becomes unconscious through repetition. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes, until it becomes your new normal. The silent saboteur loses its power when you stop agreeing with it. Weakness in your life is never because you are weak. It is because the internal voice you've been obeying is weak. But once you begin strengthening the internal dialogue, everything changes. Your posture, your confidence, your reactions, your expectations, and eventually, your results. Your unconscious self-talk has been shaping your life for years, but it doesn't have to shape your future. You are not bound to what you once believed. You are not limited by the conversations you inherited. You are not imprisoned by your old assumptions. You are the author, and the silent saboteur is merely a draft you can revise. When you begin rewriting the unconscious script, you experience something extraordinary. Life starts to feel easier, Opportunities feel closer. People treat you differently. Solutions appear faster. Your inner state becomes grounded, confident, centered, and clear. Because for the first time, your inner world is aligning with your chosen identity instead of your conditioned identity. Master the silent saboteur, and you master the hidden half of creation. Chapter 8. The future you is speaking. Inside you lives a version of yourself that already has everything you desire: the confidence, the clarity, the abundance, the wisdom, the peace, the relationships, the discipline, the success, the spiritual awareness, the fulfillment. This version of you is not imaginary. It is a real, fully formed state of consciousness that already exists within your imagination, waiting for you to enter it. And the doorway into that future version of yourself is internal dialogue. Most people speak from the old self. Some speak from the present self. But transformation belongs to the one who speaks from the future self, the self that already occupies the end result. This chapter reveals a profound truth. Your future self is already talking. The question is, are you listening? The future you speaks with authority, clarity, and peace. The future you does. Not doubt, fear, or negotiate. The future you is not confused about destiny. The future you is not impressed by obstacles. The future you speaks from completion, not from uncertainty. And every time you tune into the voice of the future you shift your identity. The future self says things like, "I've outgrown that version of me. My results now reflect my true nature. I speak with the authority of someone who knows who they are. Life responds quickly and favorably to my alignment. It already worked out for me. I'm just watching the pieces fall into place." The more you adopt this internal voice, the faster your outer world organizes itself to match it. The future self does not speak from fear, because the future self already knows the outcome. The future self does not speak from lack, because the future self already possesses what you desire. The future self does not speak from indecision, because the future self has already chosen alignment and identity. When you begin speaking from this version of yourself, your emotional state changes. You walk differently, breathe differently, expect differently. You move through life with a quiet certainty that others can feel. This chapter teaches you how to meet the future you through inner speech. The future self is a frequency. The future you is not distant in time. It is distant in consciousness. It exists at a higher emotional and psychological frequency. To access it, you must tune your inner dialogue to match its tone. Imagine a radio. All the stations exist right now. You hear only the one you tune into. Your future self is a station. You access it by adjusting your internal dialogue. When you speak as if you already are the person you desire to become, you shift your frequency. You rise above the doubts of the old self. You rise above the noise of the present. You align with the consciousness of the fulfilled state. Frequency precedes visibility. Tune your inner world, and the outer world responds. The future self doesn't wait, it instructs. The biggest mistake is believing you must wait to feel like your future self. Waiting delays becoming. Internal dialogue accelerates becoming. Your future self is not waiting for circumstances. Circumstances are waiting for you to enter the right identity. When you speak as your future self now, You collapse the distance between who you are and who you are becoming. You eliminate hesitation. You eliminate confusion. You eliminate the internal debate that slows manifestation. Most people hesitate because they are speaking from the old self. But the future self doesn't hesitate. It directs. It says, "This is who I am now." I make decisions from clarity, not fear. My life moves forward because I move forward internally. I accept that I am the one shaping this reality. This voice carries creative authority. It does not ask. It declares. It does not hope. It knows. It doesn't fear. It is anchored. Meeting the future you in your inner world. To access this version of yourself consistently, you must create deliberate moments of inner alignment. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and ask, what does my future self say about this situation? How does my future self think? What would the fulfilled version of me declare internally right now? Then listen. Truly listen. The voice that answers is not imagination. It is identity. It is the version of you that exists beyond limitation. You may feel a shift immediately. A calmness, a confidence, a clarity. This is not motivation. It is recognition. You are meeting yourself. The future self replaces the old internal dialogue. When you speak from the future self, the old internal dialogue loses its power. Statements like, "I'm not ready. What if it fails? I don't deserve better," begin to sound absurd, even foreign, because the future self would never say them. The old self sounds small. The future self sounds inevitable. This is why adopting the voice of your future self is transformative. Identity changes. Emotional state changes. Behavior changes. The world mirrors the identity shift. The future self becomes the new narrator. Living from the future you. When you internalize the voice of your future self, you stop chasing. You align. You stop doubting. You decide. You stop reacting. You respond with authority. You stop fearing. You trust your path. You stop waiting. You begin living as if the fulfillment is already happening now. This is not delusion. It is spiritual law. You become the version of yourself you consistently speak from. Identity precedes experience. Internal dialogue precedes. Manifestation. When you speak as your future self long enough, the world has no choice but to reflect that version of you. Your future self is not far away. Your future self is one conversation away. Tune into that voice, and the future becomes your present. Chapter 9. The inner conversation of certainty. There is a distinct difference between wishing and knowing, between hoping and expecting, between wanting and assuming. The gap between these states is not crossed by effort, luck, or chance. It is crossed by internal dialogue. Certainty is not a personality trait. It is a chosen mental posture. And certainty speaks its own language. This chapter explores the transformative power of speaking internally from a place of certainty, and how doing so reshapes your emotional state, your behavior, and the very structure of your reality. People who lack certainty speak from indecision. I hope this works. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. I'm trying. These sound harmless, but they reveal an internal posture of doubt, and doubt creates delays. Doubt fragments your energy. Doubt tells the subconscious mind, we are not ready. We are not aligned. We are not convinced. But the inner conversation of certainty is clear, decisive, steady, and authoritative. It says, this is done. This is who I am now. Everything is aligning. Of course it works out for me. Notice the tone. It is not asking. It is declaring. It is not hoping. It is affirming. It is not waiting. It is embodying. Certainty does not beg for evidence. It produces evidence. Where certainty comes from. Certainty is not created in the outer world. If you wait for external proof, you will never reach certainty. Circumstances may change, but inner wavering will remain. Certainty comes from one place only. The decision to align your internal dialogue with the outcome rather than the situation. It is a conscious, deliberate shift from observing the world to authoring the world. Certainty is spiritual authorship. When you speak from certainty, you stop interrogating life with questions like, how will this happen? When will it happen? What if it doesn't? These questions belong to the old self, the doubting self, the fearful self. The certain self speaks differently. It is unfolding now. I see results because I live from the end. I walk in favor. I expect good because good is aligned with my identity. These inner statements generate a frequency, a strong, compelling frequency that the subconscious mind must obey. Certainty creates emotional stability. Indecision creates emotional turbulence. When your inner dialogue flips between belief and doubt, your emotions fluctuate in response. One moment you feel hopeful. The next, you feel anxious. One moment, you feel powerful. The next, you feel discouraged. Why? Because your emotions follow your dominant internal conversation. Certainty brings emotional stability because certainty anchors you. When your inner speech stays rooted in a firm conclusion, your emotions fall into alignment. You feel grounded, centered, clear, and calm, not because of circumstances, but because of identity. Certainty says, I know who I am. I know where I'm going. I know what belongs to me. I know nothing can prevent what is already mine. When you speak this way internally, your emotional state transforms. Peace becomes a baseline. Confidence becomes natural. Calmness becomes effortless. Not because life is easy, but because you are aligned. Certainty produces action without force. When you lack certainty, every action feels heavy. You question yourself. You second-guess decisions. You hesitate. You procrastinate. You overthink. You look for signs. You search for reassurance. This drains energy and creates internal conflict. But when you speak from certainty, action becomes fluid. Decision-making becomes simple. Movement becomes natural. You are no longer forcing momentum. Momentum flows from identity. Certainty eliminates hesitation. Instead of thinking, I hope this is right, you think, this is right because I decided it is. Instead of thinking, I don't know if this will work, you think, it will work because I'm aligned with the version of me for whom it already worked. Action becomes inspired, not pressured. Results unfold quickly because you are not working against your own inner resistance. Certainty attracts favorable conditions. Life responds to certainty. People respond to certainty. Opportunities respond to certainty. Why? Because certainty communicates clarity, and clarity magnetizes alignment. When you internally speak with certainty, your external world reorganizes to match it. People treat you differently. Resources appear. Doors open. Solutions reveal themselves. Your environment mirrors your internal posture. This is not coincidence. It is law. Your inner world is the blueprint. Certainty draws the blueprint onto physical reality. Now, how to develop the inner conversation of certainty? There are 4 steps to cultivating certainty through internal dialogue. 1. Identify the area where you doubt. Awareness is power. Recognize the subject where your internal dialogue wavers. 2. Choose the end result you claim as true. Certainty requires clarity. Decide the outcome you are speaking from. 3. Create a short internal statement of certainty. Examples: it is done. I am qualified. This is aligning for me now. Of course this works out. 4. Repeat it silently until your body believes it. Certainty is not mental. It is embodied. You know you have entered certainty when your emotions shift to match your internal declarations. At that point, doubt becomes irrelevant. You don't negotiate with old thoughts. You don't argue with fear. You don't debate with the past. You simply return to the internal tone of certainty every single time. Certainty is evidence of alignment. When your inner world speaks certainty, it means you have aligned your identity with the outcome. You have stepped into the spiritual end result. You have become the version of yourself who lives in the fulfillment. Once identity shifts, life must follow. The conversation of certainty is the conversation of embodiment. It is the language of someone who knows that creation begins within. It is the tone of one who understands that assumptions create reality. It is the internal dialogue of alignment, power, and inevitability. Certainty is not loud. It is quiet, steady, unshakable, absolute. It is the voice within you that says, I already won. Master this internal posture, and a manifestation becomes not just possible, but predictable. Chapter 10. The Dialogue of Alignment. Alignment is not something you stumble into. It is something you speak yourself into. The life you desire, the version of yourself you are becoming, the outcomes you expect. All of them require an internal atmosphere that matches the end you've chosen. Without alignment, your actions feel forced, your thoughts feel scattered, and your emotions contradict your intentions. But when your inner dialogue aligns with your desired identity, something profound happens. Life begins to cooperate. Things begin to flow. Opportunities begin to emerge. Resistance begins to dissolve. Alignment is the art of bringing your inner world into harmony with the version of yourself you intend to embody. And harmony is created by speech. Not external speech, but internal dialogue. Most people attempt alignment through effort. They try harder, push harder, work harder, overthink, over-strategize, and exhaust themselves searching for signs. But alignment is not manufactured by force. It is activated through internal agreement. Alignment says, I am already the person I've been trying to become. I speak from the identity that lives in the end result. My inner tone matches the outcome I've chosen. This internal agreement begins to shape your emotional state, your decisions, your expectations, and your experiences. But here's the truth many miss. You cannot align with a future you while speaking with the vocabulary of a past you. Your internal dialogue must be upgraded to match the version of yourself you desire to embody. The feeling of alignment. Alignment is not a concept. It is a feeling, and the feeling always begins in your inner speech. When alignment is present, you feel clear, grounded, energized, centered, certain, unrushed, unbothered. This internal posture is not created by circumstances. It's created by the sentences you say to yourself. The aligned dialogue sounds like it's unfolding perfectly. I trust the process because I trust myself. I am synchronized with the life I'm creating. I'm thinking from the end, not toward it. These statements shift your emotional frequency instantly. They lift you out of doubt and drop you into the reality of your chosen identity. Misalignment has a voice, too. Misalignment reveals itself through specific internal statements. What if this doesn't work? I'm not ready yet. This is taking too long. I hope this turns out okay. I've failed before. What if it happens again? These thoughts are not just fears. They are misaligned dialogues, and misalignment always produces confusion, anxiety, inconsistency, overthinking, emotional instability, procrastination. You cannot create a new life from misalignment. You will sabotage progress. You will hesitate instead of move. You will interpret life from insecurity rather than authority. This chapter teaches you how to identify misalignment quickly and shift into internal agreement with your desired identity. Alignment requires inner agreement. You cannot be aligned while your internal dialogue and your desire are in conflict. Desire says one thing, internal dialogue says another. Desire: I want financial abundance. Internal dialogue: I don't know if I deserve it. Desire: I want a joyful relationship. Internal dialogue: people always disappoint me. Desire: I want success. Internal dialogue: I've failed too many times. This internal contradiction breaks alignment. To restore alignment, you must remove internal conflict by replacing the opposing statements. Alignment happens when your internal speech matches your desired reality. What if it happens again? Here is the 4-step alignment method. 1. Identify the misaligned sentence. Every time you feel off, doubtful, fearful, anxious, or frustrated, trace the feeling back to the sentence behind it. There is always a sentence. 2. Reject the authority of the misaligned sentence. Do not negotiate with it. Do not analyze it. Do not explain it. Simply refuse its authority. 3. Replace it with an aligned dialogue. Create and repeat a sentence that matches your desired outcome. My life responds to my identity. I am in perfect flow with my destiny. I'm operating from my fulfilled self. 4. Feel the shift. Alignment is emotional. Once the new sentence generates a calmer, clearer, or more confident feeling, you are aligned. Repeat this process daily, and alignment becomes your default state. Alignment changes your perception. When you are aligned internally, you interpret life differently. Challenges feel purposeful rather than threatening. Delays feel like preparation rather than denial. Opportunities feel accessible rather than intimidating. People feel cooperative rather than adversarial. Outcomes feel inevitable rather than uncertain. Your interpretation changes because your identity has changed. The aligned self sees differently, expects differently, and chooses differently. Your world rearranges because your perception has upgraded. Alignment makes manifestation effortless. Once your internal dialogue is aligned with your desired identity, manifestation becomes predictable. Not because you force it, but because you cooperate with it. Life mirrors the internal state you consistently occupy. Alignment produces synchronicity. Alignment dissolves resistance. Alignment attracts opportunities. Alignment clarifies direction. Alignment energizes action. Your external world begins to reflect your internal harmony. You no longer chase outcomes. Outcomes gravitate to you. The voice of your aligned self. The aligned self speaks with a tone of quiet authority. I know this is mine. I am synchronized with my future. I walk in clarity. My actions match my identity. I speak from completion. This is the language of alignment. It is calm. It is confident. It is inevitable. Alignment is the inner agreement that makes your chosen reality unavoidable. Your inner dialogue is the steering wheel of your destiny. When it aligns with your desired identity, every part of your life adjusts to that frequency. Internal harmony produces external harmonizing. Master the dialogue of alignment, and you master the flow of your life. Chapter 11. The Inner Language of Power. Power is not volume. Power is not aggression. Power is not dominance over others. Power is internal alignment expressed through internal dialogue. The most powerful people in the world are not those who speak the loudest, but those whose inner speech is unwavering. Their internal voice does not negotiate with fear, does not bow to doubt, and does not collapse under pressure. Their inner language is clean, decisive, simple, and sovereign. This chapter reveals how true power is cultivated inside you through the deliberate use of internal speech that establishes identity, commands emotional stability, and shapes reality according to the tone of your consciousness. Before a person becomes powerful outwardly, they become powerful inwardly. Before a person influences the world, they influence themselves. Everything begins with the internal language. The weak language of disowned power. Many people unintentionally weaken themselves through the vocabulary they use internally. Statements like, "I'm overwhelmed. I hope I can make it. I don't know if I'm ready. I've never been good at this. What if I mess up?" These lines of inner speech create emotional instability and identity fragmentation. They do not simply describe your feelings, they shape them. They do not simply report your state, they dictate it. Weak internal language leads to hesitation, anxiety, poor decision-making, self-doubt, emotional volatility, loss of direction, inconsistent actions. Weak inner speech is not a personality flaw, it is a habit, which means it can be replaced. The voice of power is grounded. Powerful internal dialogue is not dramatic. It is steady. It is rooted. It is calm. The inner language of power sounds like this. I am in control of my inner world. I decide the meaning of this moment. I trust the choices I make. This situation bends in my favor. I am more than prepared for this. Do you see the difference? The voice of weakness asks for reassurance. The voice of power provides reassurance. One searches externally for security. The other generates security internally. This is where true dominance lies, not over others, but over your internal landscape. Power is the ability to direct your inner state. People believe power is the ability to influence circumstances, but real power is the ability to influence yourself, regardless of circumstances. When you can direct your thoughts, your feelings, your internal tone, and your assumptions, you are powerful. The inner language of power creates emotional resilience, clarity even in chaos, confidence without arrogance, forward momentum, unshakable composure, identity solidity, predictable manifestation. Power is not in the external event. It is in the internal interpretation. Two people can face the same challenge. One crumbles, the other grows. The difference is internal dialogue. The 3 laws of inner power. To step into the inner language of power, you must master these 3 laws. Law 1. The law of self-authorship. Powerful people do not wait for the world to tell them who they are. They tell the world who they are. Your internal dialogue must become the script for your identity, not a reaction to old memories or past wounds. Self-authorship sounds like, I decide what I believe about myself. I define the meaning of this moment. I choose who I am becoming. The inner author writes the story, not the past, not the environment, not the opinions of others. Law 2. The law of inner command. Your inner language must direct your emotions, not describe them. Internal commands are short, direct, grounded statements that stabilize your state. Examples: breathe, calm, focus, relax your shoulders. You've been here before. You know what to do. These commands shift your physiology instantly. Power lives in the body as much as in the mind. Law 3. The law of inner assumption. The most powerful people assume their success internally, long before it becomes visible. Their inner dialogue accepts the outcome as fact. This is already mine. I am built for this. I belong in this room. My results are inevitable. Assumption is the highest form of inner power because it collapses doubt. Once you assume a thing internally, resistance dissolves. The body responds to the inner language of power. Your internal dialogue communicates directly with your nervous system. When your inner speech is chaotic, your body enters chaos. When your inner speech is commanding and calm, your body stabilizes. Think of how your body reacts when you inwardly say, I can't do this. Your chest tightens. Your breath shortens. Your confidence drops. Now consider the inner statement. I've got this. Your body opens. Your breath deepens. Your presence strengthens. Internal language is somatic. It reorganizes your entire system. Master the internal tone, and you master the physical expression of power. Power does not need proof. It creates proof. Weak internal language demands evidence. That didn't work last time. I need a sign. What if something goes wrong? Strong internal language produces evidence. It speaks as if the outcome is already established. It carries itself like someone who knows the result is inevitable. When your inner dialogue operates from resolved expectation, your outer world must conform. Life mirrors your assumptions, not your hopes. Powerful inner speech is not powered by ego. It is powered by identity. The practice of powerful inner speech. Here's the daily practice. 1. Catch the weak internal sentence. There is always a sentence behind hesitation. 2. Interrupt it immediately. A single pause breaks its authority. 3. Replace it with a powerful statement. Short, clear, anchored, commanding. 4. Feel the shift. The body will tell you when the new voice has taken hold. 5. Repeat until automatic. Once the language becomes automatic, the identity becomes automatic. This is how power is built. One internal sentence at a time. When you speak from the inner language of power, everything in your life changes. People treat you differently. Opportunities open. Solutions appear. You stop being intimidated by life and begin influencing it. Because once your internal voice becomes powerful, your external world must obey. Chapter 12. Speak only what you want. Your internal dialogue is the architect of your experience. Every quiet sentence, every mental rehearsal, every private assumption contributes to the reality you eventually meet. Most people speak internally from observation. They describe what they see, narrate what they fear, and reinforce what they don't. Want. But mastery demands something higher. You must speak only what you want. This is not denial. This is direction. This is not ignoring the present. This is designing the future. Every time you think or speak within yourself, you are giving the subconscious mind instructions. It does not judge, question, or resist. It simply accepts and creates from whatever internal language you feed it. This is why internal discipline is essential. If you say within yourself, "I'm tired of struggling," your subconscious hears struggling. If you say, "I don't want to be broke anymore," your subconscious hears broke. If you say, "I hope I don't fail," your subconscious hears fail. The subconscious does not process rejection. It processes direction. It doesn't understand don't. It understands the dominant image and emotional tone behind your words. This chapter teaches you the highest law of inner authorship. Speak only the outcome you desire, never the condition you fear. The law of creative specificity. When you speak only what you want, your internal language becomes clean and consistent. You no longer dilute your desires with contradictory statements. You no longer rehearse the problem. You no longer energize the old pattern. Your internal dialogue becomes laser-focused on the end result. Instead of saying, "I don't want to be in debt," you say, "I enjoy financial freedom." Instead of saying, "I hope people treat me right," you say, "I attract respectful, loving relationships." Instead of saying, "I'm so tired of being overlooked," you say, "I am recognized and valued everywhere I go." Notice the pattern. You are not fixing the problem. You're declaring the solution. This is the language of creators, leaders, and conscious manifestors. The mistake of emotional rehearsal. Most people rehearse negative experiences internally long before they happen. They run scenarios of rejection, lack, embarrassment, or failure. They create emotional experiences in the mind, and the subconscious responds by manifesting them externally. You must stop rehearsing what you do not want, because rehearsal is invitation. Emotion is permission. Inner speech is creation. If you rehearse fear, you prepare for fear. If you rehearse success, you prepare for success. Your life expands or contracts according to the emotional dialogues you repeat. The power of selective inner speech. The most disciplined creators do not allow every thought to become internal speech. They are selective. They filter. They choose the thoughts that support their identity and release the ones that contradict it. Selective inner speech sounds like, "That's not my story anymore. This is who I am now. I speak from the end, not from the evidence. I've already received what I'm claiming." This selectivity is not about control. It is about authorship. You are not policing your mind. You are training it. The voice of the fulfilled self. To speak only what you want, you must adopt the voice of the version of you who already has it. This voice does not hope. It knows. It doesn't wait. It embodies. It doesn't fear. It stands firm. The fulfilled self says, "I think like the person who has arrived. I speak from abundance. I walk in favor. I am aligned with everything meant for me." When this voice becomes dominant, manifestation becomes predictable. Transforming your inner language. Here is the method to ensure your inner speech aligns with your desires. Step 1. Identify the unwanted speech. Catch the moments where you speak internally from lack, fear, doubt, or frustration. Awareness is the first step in transformation. Examples of unwanted speech. "This is hard. Nothing ever works out for me. People don't listen to me. I'm tired of this." These thoughts must not be allowed to linger. Step 2. Replace with desired speech. Immediately provide the subconscious with clear, affirmative, forward-moving dialogue. Replacement examples. "This is working out smoothly now. Everything aligns for me. I communicate with clarity and authority. I am energized and empowered." Your subconscious does not resist replacement. It embraces it. Step 3. Feel the new statement. The emotional tone is everything. The feeling seals the instruction. When you feel the internal statement, you activate the state of the fulfilled self. Feeling converts words into creation. Step 4. Repeat until natural. Eventually, speaking only what you want becomes effortless. It becomes your identity. It becomes the lens through which you interpret life. The more natural the new speech becomes, the faster your world adjusts. The world responds to your internal decisions. When you speak only what you want, your world begins to reorganize itself accordingly. People respond differently. Opportunities expand. Circumstances soften. Clarity sharpens. Synchronicities increase. Confidence stabilizes. Not because life changed first, but because you did. Your inner world becomes orderly, so your outer world follows. The world is always adjusting to your internal speech. This is the final law of internal mastery. Speak only what you want. Not what you fear. Not what you hate. Not what you're tired of. Not what you wish would go away. Speak only the end result. Speak only the desired identity. Speak only the fulfilled state. This is not positive thinking. It is conscious creation. This is not wishful thinking. It is spiritual law. This is not pretending. It is embodying. When you discipline your internal dialogue to reflect only what you desire, you become the architect of your life, the commander of your reality, and the author of your destiny. This is the art of internal dialogue. Epilogue, the conversation. That becomes your life. All transformation begins with a conversation. Not a conversation with others, not a conversation with life itself, but a quiet, intimate conversation you hold within your own mind. Throughout this book, you've uncovered the truth that your inner dialogue is not merely thinking. It is creation. It is identity. It is instruction. It is the spiritual blueprint from which your entire life emerges. The words you repeat, the feelings you cultivate, the assumptions you accept, and the tone you adopt inside yourself shape every corner of your experience. And now that you understand this truth, the responsibility and the power rests in your hands. You no longer move through life unconsciously reacting to old patterns. You are now aware. You are now deliberate. You are now the author. The internal dialogues that once kept you limited have been exposed. The unseen scripts that once shaped your self-concept have been rewritten. The quiet assumptions that once held you back have been replaced by a new inner authority. You have met the old self, confronted it, and introduced the higher self, the future self, the fulfilled self. Now your task is to live from the identity you have constructed through inner speech. The end is never the end. It is the beginning of the inner life. What you have built through these chapters is not a mindset. It is a practice. Internal dialogue is not something you master once. It is something you refine daily. Every moment offers an opportunity to speak from power, from clarity, from alignment, and from the end result of your desire. There will still be moments where the old voice tries to return. There will still be situations that tempt you to narrate from fear. There will still be challenges that whisper old assumptions. But now, you know the truth. That voice is not you. It is a habit. That fear is not you. It is a memory. That doubt is not you. It is an echo. And echoes lose their power when you refuse to repeat them. This epilogue marks the beginning of your conscious mastery of inner speech. You now understand that you do not need to ask the world for permission to transform. You give yourself permission through the words you entertain within. You have become aware of your true creative tool. Thought alone is not creation. Words spoken aloud are not creation. Even desire alone is not creation. Creation begins with assumed internal speech, accompanied by feeling. This is the conversation that forms identity. Identity forms action. Action forms experience. Experience forms your world. You change your life not by fighting circumstances, but by changing the internal narrator who interprets them. You change your story not by altering external scenes, but by altering the voice that speaks from within the scenes. Everything you will ever be, accomplish, receive, or embody begins with the inner tone you choose. The new you speaks differently. The version of you who leaves this book behind is not the version who entered it. Something in you has awakened. Something in you has expanded. Something in you has remembered its creative authority. The new you speaks differently. The new you speaks from the end, not toward it. The new you speaks from identity, not insecurity. The new you speaks from peace, not panic. The new you speaks from certainty, not confusion. The new you speaks from embodiment, not hope. Your language has become your leadership. Your tone has become your compass. Your assumptions have become your foundation. The inner world has shifted, and the outer world must follow. The silent transformation. You will notice changes quietly at first. You will think differently. You will feel differently. You will walk differently. You will respond differently. You will choose differently. You will expect differently. And life will begin responding differently. Small shifts will become big transformations. Not because life suddenly changed, but because you changed the way you speak to yourself. The world outside of you has no choice but to reflect the world inside you. This is the law. This is the design. This is the power you've reclaimed. Your inner dialogue is your companion for life. There is no moment in your life where you are without this inner voice. It moves with you. It grows with you. It evolves with you. It is the most loyal companion you will ever have. And now, it is the most empowering. As you move forward, remember, speak with intention. Speak with authority. Speak with clarity. Speak with alignment. Speak from the identity you choose to embody. Speak only what you want. Your words are not mere thoughts. They are seeds. Your feelings are not small emotions. They are instructions. Your assumptions are not casual ideas. They are blueprints. The life you build from this moment forward will not be a coincidence. It will be a reflection of the inner architect you have become. The final word. You are the speaker, the listener, the observer, the creator, and the experiencer of your inner dialogue. You are the one shaping the tone. You are the one choosing the meaning. You are the one interpreting the world. You are the one assigning value to events. You are the one who decides who you are becoming. And because you are the author of your inner conversation, you are the author of your life. This book does not end here. It continues within you. With every thought you direct, every emotion you cultivate, every assumption you adopt, and every identity you embody. The power is yours. The voice is yours. The creation is yours. Your inner dialogue is the script. Your life is the stage. Speak with the authority of the creator you are. The journey doesn't stop here. It begins every time you choose your perspective. You now understand that your life is not shaped by what happens to you, but by how you arrange what happens within you. The room of your mind is no longer something you walk into unconsciously. It is a space you design deliberately, live in intentionally, and expand continuously. Every thought is a piece of furniture. Every belief has a placement. Every emotion changes the atmosphere. Every assumption directs the flow. Every perspective reshapes the room. From this moment forward, you are no longer reacting to life. You are interpreting it with authority. When things feel heavy, you know what to do. Rearrange. When things feel tight, you know what to do. Create space. When things feel unclear, you know what to do. Change the angle. When things feel stuck, you know what to do. Shift perspective. You don't wait for the world to change. You change the room, and the world follows. The power was never outside of you. The answer was never somewhere else. The solution was never about escape. It was always about perspective. Live consciously. Choose wisely. See clearly. Design intentionally. And remember, the room is yours. The art of internal dialogue has now come to a conclusion. Thank you for listening. Please like and share.